Rendering is a very cool thing in 3D modeling. You can take any 3D model and make it look better or more realistic in a render. 3D rendering is the process of turning information from a 3D model into a 2D image. It is a very large topic, so we will only cover the basics. We will create a background for our scene and also add in some lighting to make our scene look better for rendering. First, let's create a floor for the barrel to stand on top of. Click Shift A and then create a plane mesh. Let's scale it up and place it beneath our barrel. Let's duplicate that plane by selecting it and pressing Ctrl C and Ctrl V. Now let's rotate it on the y-axis by 90 degrees, 90. And let's just move it over here. And I will do the same thing again. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, move it over here, and rotate 90 degrees again. Doesn't have to be completely uniform, something like that's okay. For simplicity's sake, let's give the walls the same metal texture that we used on the barrel. So I'm just going to come up here, come to the browser and select metal. And we can give the floor a wood texture. Again, selecting the floor, browser, wood. Now let's create a light source. Click Shift and A and then come down to the light menu here. And then let's select an area light source for this. And just move it up. Scale it up just so we can see it a bit better. I'm just going to move it over here. And then rotate so that this line is on the barrel. This line here is essentially the cone of light that will come out of this area light source plane. So I'm just going to switch to render preview mode. On our render properties, let's just switch the render over to 1000, which will basically increase the number of render samples for rendering. And let's just check ambient occlusion. Let's also come down to this object data properties for our light and turn up the wattage just until we start getting light appear. Nothing too strong, probably something like that. Now for fun, we can choose to add another color for our light source. Let's make it something like this. But you can do whatever color you want. Now we need to add a camera. So let's click Shift and A and then add a camera. Let's move our camera up. Now let's get ourselves into a position of where we want the picture for our render to be taken. So let's say like here, for example. And then click Control, Alt, and 0. And this will snap the camera into the position of your view. I'm actually just going to come out a little bit more. Something like that. And do Control 0 again. Yeah, so something like that. But again, you can do whatever position you want. Now, we've got a very basic scene here, which is fine for this tutorial series. Let's come up to render and then click render image. And depending how fast your computer is will dictate how long this takes. And there you have it, the render of our 3D model. The last thing I want to do is show you how we could export this rendered image and the 3D model out of Blender. So to save the image, you can come up to the image menu here and select Save or Save As. And then you can choose a name and save it as any file format you want. Now let's say you wanted to export this barrel out into a game engine. Before we do that, let's just take our metal bands and the barrel. So I'm just shift clicking here, and then click Control and J to join them. So if I move it around now, you can see this is one mesh. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can export this out as an OBJ file and then select selection only on it so that we don't grab the wall and the floor with it. So with the barrel selected, come to File, Export, Wavefront OBJ, and then you can export it to any folder you want. I'm just going to call this barrel.obj, and then make sure you come here and select selection only. If you don't select this, Blender will export everything that's in your scene, so we would get the walls and the floor as well. So let's just do selection only and then export OBJ. So that concludes the Blender beginner tutorial series. However, there is still much more to learn. Now that you know how to get around Blender and create simple 3D models and renders, you are in a much stronger position to learn more advanced topics and get on the road to becoming a 3D artist. In the Blender Intermediate tutorial series, we will be covering many more topics to aid you in your 3D modelling. Before you move on to the next tutorial series, I suggest you have a play around with Blender and try to create more interesting shapes and objects. I will see you in the next series.